Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club and our weekly celebration of service. My name is Tracy Ivanovich, and I'm honored and pleased to be serving as your president. Our thought for the day is from Loretta Lynch, the first African-American woman to hold U.S. Attorney General's office. And her quote is, "Our most effective response to terror and to hatred is compassion, it's unity, and it's love." And I thought that was really appropriate given everything that's going on in the world today. We are always so strong after there's a situation that calls for us to come together. And so we have to try to do that on a regular basis. So that'll be something for us to challenge ourselves with. And on that note, Judy Schroeder, if you could come up and give us our reflection. Testing 1, 2, 3. It just doesn't like me.
Hi there, everyone. Is that good? Okay. I just want you to know I'm really excited that this Rotary Toast is going to honor Doug Botter. I've been one of Doug's admirers for 30 years. When our Rotary book group meets on October 9th at my house, we will be having as our book The Privilege of Being Queer. Because it's so hard to get a copy of the book, Doug and his husband are reprinting it. It should be available before the toast, and it will have a new chapter about the last 5 years as Doug has coped with cancer and a stroke. Doug is a minister in the Moravian Church, one of the historic peace churches. He brought, as the founding director of the GLBTQ Center, a profound pastoral element. He is kind. He is non-judgmental. He's accepting. Let me tell you a story. 25 years ago, here in Bloomington, Indiana, on July 4th, that most patriotic of American holidays, an international student, a guest in our country, was murdered as he walked to church on a Sunday morning carrying his Bible. The perpetrator, a white supremacist, had already killed Ricky Birdsong, a basketball coach at Northwestern, who was jogging near his home with his 10-year-old and 8-year-old child. Ricky Birdsong was Black. To say that this community was aghast at this crime is an understatement. Bloomington United organized a community memorial service, and an overflow crowd of more than 3,000 gathered at the Musical Arts Center. Our own Phil Amerson presided. Bloomington United wanted Doug to speak at this occasion, but Won Jun Yoon's father had come from Korea to mourn his only son, and he thought homosexuality is a sin. He did not want a gay man to be part of the service. Some Bloomington United leaders really thought Doug should be there to represent a group that's also been the object of hate crimes. But Doug said, "Here is a grieving father. We must respect his wishes." Not very many people know this story of compassion, humility, and deep humanity. Doug doesn't talk about it. I heard it from another Rotarian 25 years ago. But it turns out it has a part two. Doug, being Doug, wrote to Mr. Yoon a letter of great sympathy for his horrible loss. Mr. Yoon replied, and they developed a kind of friendship. When Mr. Yoon returned to Bloomington on the anniversary of his son's death, he embraced Doug warmly. I am so looking forward to this toast, and I hope you are too.
Thank you, Judy. And Steve Wicks, if you could introduce our guest, both here in the room as well as online.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. I have a number of guests today. First of all, guest of Jim Bright, we have Carol Rhodes, and if you could stand or wave your hand. Guest of Glenda Murray, we have Betty Coffey. We have Sam Cleland, who's the guest of John Hobson here today. And the school year has started, and we have 3 members of the IU Rotaract Club. The new president, Kevin Burris. And along with Kevin, we have Yaya Kader and Anaf Rahi. Joy, do we have any guests online?
Hi, Steve. Yes, we have guest of Jim Bright, and joining us from Plymouth Rotary Club in Michigan, we have David Willett joining us. And we also are happy that Sue Scamelluri is joining us online. And we kept you in our thoughts, Sue, last week. So that's it.
All guests, welcome. If you'd like to learn anything about Rotary, turn to the person sitting next to you and ask away.
All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. This is birthday week. Let me just say, and before I even say that, it's so nice to see the students back. Glad to have you all here. It's awesome to see your smiling, energetic faces. All right. Birthdays. Dr. Dakir Abdullah on the 28th. Claudia Avellaneda is today. So if you see her, she's 29 young. Mike Hoff on the 30th. Sue, you're today as well. So congratulations. And Dad, Winston Schindel on the 29th. And then Shelley Yoder on the 30th. So quite the busy week on birthdays. From an anniversary standpoint, Byron Banger, 53 years. Unbelievable. I thought maybe I had misread, and I went back because I misread a few things for those of you who got agendas last week. But that's what it says in the system. So there you go. Because I thought that was a lot, but still, we're giving it to you. Lynn Tiemann, 7 years. So those are our anniversaries and birthdays, and we have quite a few announcements. First on the list, so everyone's aware, Vivian Bridges fell, and she has been working through therapy, getting better. She has not been able to come back to Rotary, so she misses everyone. We're sending her a card, but I'm sure she'd appreciate any well wishes that you could send her way. Saturday on the 14th, there's a few flyers out. We have the 43rd Monroe County Freedom Fund Awards Dinner, and the funds raised support the local branch activities such as scholarships for local high school seniors, public forums on significant civil rights issues, and community programs that advance the mission of the NAACP. They are also honoring this year Bloomington's own Elizabeth Mitchell for her distinguished public service. And the dinner will be at Ivy Tech at 7 o'clock, and tickets can be purchased through the Buzzkirk Chumley Theater online or at the box office in person. So we'll put something about that in the roundabout as well, but want to make sure we have a good turnout for it. And then next, RILA applicants. Those are due on September 6th. So please, if you have some applications, we'd love to, I know Joy is working feverishly on that. We'd love to have some more students involved. And then Toast tickets, the wonderful reflection that Judy gave. We have 92 tickets sold to date. This is our big fundraiser. So to the extent we can, we'd love to see everyone there for the toast honoring Doug Botter. That would be fantastic. And then thank yous. Okay, you may or may not have seen up at the front when you walked in, there were two thank you cards, really saying thank you for all that you, everyone in this room and online have done to help with Teachers Warehouse. There was one from the TNMS school and the Highland Park school. So take a look at it if you get a chance. And then lastly, Hoosier Hills Food Bank sent a thank you letter for the $100 donation we gave to them last quarter. All right. And on that note, Ms. Gaskell, could you introduce our esteemed guest?
Hey, everyone. As you all know, our land here in Bloomington was originally, of course, not ours. This land was originally occupied by Indigenous people. We wish to acknowledge and honor the Miamayaki, Lenape, Bodowadnik, and Sawanawa people, on whose ancestral homelands and resources Bloomington and Indiana University are built. Now, in English, those tribes are known as the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee. Our speaker today is Sherene Goetson-Ing, who's the director of IU's First Nations Educational and Cultural Center, which we'll be learning about today. Sherene came to Bloomington about a dozen years ago and earned a master's degree from the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. She came with her husband and their two daughters. The daughters are both in public schools, and her husband teaches in the Religious Studies department here at IU. Prior to being at the First Nations Center, Sherene served as the director of the Self-Sufficiency Center at Macomb, Monroe County United Ministries, for 4 years. And for 4 years prior to that, she was membership coordinator at the Monroe County Y. Now, before that, she and I have something in common. We put our husbands through graduate school together in Boston. And so she was there for 8 years and worked in public media at WGBH. But Sherene started out in Arizona as a member of the Navajo Nation. Now, Navajo is also an English word. The Navajo themselves call themselves Diné. It's my honor to introduce Sherene Goetson-Ing.
Yat she Sherene Goetson-Ing Yanashya Tchodich Eatney Nashle Islatlana Bashishchi Tchachitni Dashache Trapaha Dashanella. Hello, everyone. My name is Sherene Goetson-Ing. I'm originally from Northern Arizona, and I grew up among my Navajo people. I am the director of the First Nations Education and Culture Center here on campus. I've been in my role for a year and a half. As mentioned, I am also an IU alum, and I attended the O'Neill School, which I am very proud of. Thank you so much for inviting me to share a little bit more information about the First Nations Center and the work that we do on campus and throughout the community. Okay, let's see. That kind of skips. There we go. This month, we celebrated 10 years at our current location on 8th Street. Our center has been a part of the community since 2003. With the support of IU faculty, students, and staff, the center has been a home away from home for so many. Our center helps ease the transition to college life and establishes a place of belonging for so many. We provide opportunities for our students to connect with Native communities We invite Native guests to come and speak on campus, and we also encourage them to learn more about the contemporary issues Indigenous communities are facing. And for Indigenous Peoples Day in 2023, we brought Woodland Sky Native American Dance Group to perform and to teach our students how to make a medicine pouch. Food often brings the community together, just like we are today, and we often host gatherings at our center. I grew up on the Navajo Nation, and I learned from my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts how to make fry bread. And so that is something that we like to do often at the center. It is something that I've also in turn learned how to teach my daughters and now my students to make. And so I've been in this role for a year, and last year I graduated a few fry bread makers at our center, which has been an amazing achievement of mine. There are so many centers sprinkled across campus. Why do we need a First Nations center here? Native American scholar Amanda Tachini says that only 7 in 10 Native students return after their first year of college. She says that universities that create a space of belonging helps Native students not feel neglected or ignored. As an IU student, I was the only Native student in my program. Being the only can often feel isolating, but the First Nations Center helped me realize that there are others on campus who are in the same situation that I was. I was able to find my space at such a large institution and find the confidence I needed to speak up in class. The center helped remind me of who I represent and where I come from. According to a recent report by the National Indian Education Association, or K through 12 education regarding Native Americans, 87% of our state standards do not mention Native American history after the 1900s. This report also urges educators to transform their curriculum to teach accurate histories of the Native Americans. Many professors across campus are incorporating more complete histories on the Indigenous peoples of this land. We now have over 10 Native faculty members on campus and who are teaching courses of Indigenous worldviews in the Americas, Native people in film, Indigenous movements and social justice, and so on. And that's what is being taught this semester right now on campus. Professors are reaching out to the center asking for guidance on their research projects and course development. We as a community are finding ways to fill the holes in the American history that we have often overlooked and neglected. We also are learning more about these moments of history. Our Native and non-Native students can also find better ways to heal from these past events. We can make peace with the actions from our ancestors and grandparents, and we can move forward with these lessons learned so that we can make changes to make the world better. A year ago, I took a group of students, faculty, and staff to the Pine Creek Indian Reservation in Michigan for the Huron Band Potawatomi Wild Rice Camp. We started our day off in ceremony, and we spent the day harvesting wild rice during this seasonal gathering. As a Diné woman who grew up on her homeland in the desert, it was a beautiful way to welcome the new season in the Potawatomi way. They taught us the names of the plants in Potawatomi. We were able to go out on the nature walks and to explore their land. They had workshops throughout the day where we were able to harvest the wild rice from start to beginning. So in the middle top picture, you'll see a professor and a student who are making knockers. And these knockers were used out on the canoe to knock the wild rice into the canoe. So a group would go out on the water and use those knockers to hit them in, and there would be a tarp in the canoe. We would then bring that tarp back, and right below that photo is our student and one of the Potawatomi community members parching the wild rice. That was my duty that day. And it took over an hour to get one batch of it done, and just continuously circling and moving that around. And then we ended the day with a feast of salmon and wild rice and vegetables. It was such a beautiful day. And it was so much time of love and laughter that day as we connected with one of the indigenous tribes of Indiana University. Over the last few years, Indiana University has made some changes on campus. In 2022, the university recognized Indigenous Peoples Day and encouraged campus communities to engage in Native communities and to also learn the history of the land. In 2023, the First Nations Scholarship was established. This program is a commitment to enhance IU for Indigenous students. Our community is enriched by their presence and engagement here. And this semester, we have welcomed the first round of recipients for the scholarship. And I was able to greet many of them at the open house on Friday. And we have a couple of students that we've added from North Dakota and even Arizona. And they're coming from their homeland and their reservation. They are so excited for the opportunity to learn and to grow here. And in 2024, the First Nations thematic living learning community was approved for the 2025 and 2026 academic year. I pushed a proposal through with the resident life so that we will have a dorm floor that is designated for Native students and non-Native students who are interested in becoming advocates for the Native communities and are committed to learning and connecting to contemporary Indigenous spaces. We at the First Nations Center are committed to building a Native community at IU and to serve as ambassadors beyond campus. Earlier this year, we traveled to my homeland on the Navajo Nation. All the students who had traveled with me had never been there before, and it was an honor for them to show them the Southwest. It was such an incredible opportunity for many of them. Some of them had rarely traveled. Some of them had never really been on a plane. And to have this opportunity to connect with other Indigenous elders was so empowering for them. So I took the students for spring break, and my parents and my family members hosted this group for the week. I know I'm biased, but I grew up on the Arizona side of the Navajo Nation. And I feel like, I mean, you can see the photos. It is like, I think, the prettier side of the reservation. In the top picture there, in the corner over there, the selfie that I took, I took a group of students to where my father is from. My father is near Page, Arizona. He's about 30 miles away in a town called Kaibito. And so my father's family did not go on the long walk. They were able to hide into the canyons. And so we were able to listen to some of the stories there of the ancestors who were able to kind of maintain their ties to the community and their homeland. And right below it is a picture of a hogan you can't see anymore. A lot of these have been taken down. This gentleman here is a family friend, and he showed my students the hogan and how this was built by his parents. My mother's family is from Monument Valley, which is the middle picture there. My mother's family did go on the long walk. And so I wanted our students to kind of hear the stories of those that were pulled away. Fortunately enough, the Navajo lived in Fort Sumter for 5 years, and then they were able to return to their homeland. For many tribes, that wasn't the case, but for ours, we're lucky that we were able to have still that connection to our homeland. And then I had one of my aunties who still raises sheep. She took us out and it was lambing season too, which was exciting. And the students were able to engage and learn more about how challenging it is to keep a sheep farm in the desert. And I'm also 5 minutes away from Antelope Canyon. And so right below we have the slot canyons there. And all the businesses that we were supported on this trip were Indigenous owned. And so from a community that suffered highly during the pandemic, we were able to then give back to those communities and provide ways to support them on their journey back to stability there. In my past year, in my role as director, it has been important for me to teach our students and our community more about where they come from. Your college years, those are things that you're wanting to know more about yourselves, about where you come from and where you're going to belong in this world. And a lot of my students are from here. They grew up in Indiana, but they're from all different parts of the country. And I want them to have that connection to homeland, to understand their story and where they come from. And so I have a handful of students who are Navajo, and I wanted to make sure that they were able to have that opportunity to know a little bit more of their people. And then also to having that experience of taking my students to the Potawatomi land to connect with the Indigenous tribes of Indiana University and to learn more about their story and their history as well. Some of the upcoming events, just to share at the First Nations Center that are happening. We have Native American artists that we have scheduled in the months of September, October, and November. We can find that on our social media page. We'll be posting those in the next few weeks. And they are usually hosted on campus at one of the museums. And we also have an IU screening coming up called Sugarcane. It's going to be on October 3rd. And this documentary will be highlighting boarding schools and resident schools in Canada. Indigenous Peoples Day is coming up on Monday, October 14th. And we will be celebrating here at the IMU. Last year, we were able to bring in an artist and we had performances scattered through the day. This year, we will be bringing Agnes Yellowbear. She used to live here in Bloomington, and she designed the ribbon skirt that Deb Haaland wore as the Secretary of the Interior. She has a new fashion line that she's going to have on display here at the IMU. So definitely come to on that Monday and check out her exhibit, and she will be giving a talk as well. And for Native Heritage Month in November, we have on campus a global Indigenous conference that is going to be happening. And so people from all over the world will be coming to share more about their language and their stories. And that will be hosted with, I believe, the Hamilton Luger School will be a part of that event. So that information too will be shared on our social media. In January, we have Party for the Pacifica here at the IMU. Last year, we were able to bring in a band from Hawaii, and we had dancing and food, and it was great. We had Pacific Islanders from all over the Midwest come and show their support. And we did not have powwow this year due to the eclipse. We couldn't find a space. But this year, we will be bringing back the IU annual traditional powwow, and we have that scheduled in April. And we're excited to have that again. That's probably our most asked question is, when are you going to be having powwow? And the people want to participate in that. The reason the center exists in our community is so that we can learn more about this place that we love here. There's so many wonderful things that IU provides in this community, and it's important for us to then also learn more about the history and to also listen to the stories that are shared. And then from that, we can finally heal and move forward and make this place better. And this is something from a Citizen Potawatomi author from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer. And she shares this. And this is something, you know, that I believe is true, that as we're coming up with ways to improve what is the world around us, you know, we definitely want to start with where we live. And you know that because of all the work that you do in your community here. And so that's what we're trying to do at the center as well, is to make sure our students know who they are and how they fit into this world around them, and ways that they can learn from histories and stories and to make an impact and heal. And thank you.
Thank you. I know I'm as ignorant as anybody about Native Americans. Can you recommend some books that we can read to educate ourselves?
Yes, I can. The last quote that I had up, Braiding Sweetgrass, is a wonderful book. And it's also from one of the original tribes of Indiana. You can get that online. I have a subscription to the Hoopla through Monroe County Public Library. And that one you can put in and you can just listen to it in the car, download it. And she reads it herself, the audiobook. And it's just so wonderful to hear. She studies plants. And she shares some of the Potawatomi words for some of the plants and the stories. And that one is such a good book to read. And there's also, I'm drawing a blank right now on the other one by one of the Indigenous. I've been trying to focus my reading on, I'm from Arizona, so I don't know much about the Indigenous tribes. So I've been this past year learning more about the the Potawatomi, the Miami, the Shawnee, and the Delaware. One thing that I like to do is I go to their websites and their social media. They're very active and they post words of the day and different quotes, and they have different videos. And I feel like that is an important source, is to get it straight from them. And so I follow all of those and learn so much about what importance holidays and celebrations that they have. And so I feel like that would be a good place for you to start too, as you're trying to learn more about some of the woodland tribes that used to reside here, and some of the stories that they share about this area. You can definitely find that on their social media pages as well.
Thank you so much for your work here at Indiana University. My name is Claire Kest. I've been to Navajo land 3 times, and it's beautiful country. And my question is, though, but during my undergrad, I remember reading an essay written by somebody who was living on a reservation, left the reservation to go to school, and felt ostracized from his family. That there was some. So is there any stigma remaining for folks who are leaving reservations to come to school here? Has that been anything that you've encountered?
Yes. So I was fortunate enough, my parents were very supportive. But my best friend growing up didn't have that support. Her parents didn't have that experience of going to college. And so she often struggled with that transition, as, you know, it was a waste of time and resources. A lot of it too is just not knowing. The unknown is just scary. Things definitely are starting to change a little bit more. And the value of education is important a little bit more now too, on the reservations. And so, but you know, at the center, we still have students coming who have spent their time, you know, on the reservation and just making that transition. You know, college life is already a big transition, but then you come and nobody looks like you, and the food is different, and the language is different, and the culture is different. And so trying to provide that support and encouragement too is something that I do, you know, every day. But, you know, as these students thrive and are finding their place, a lot of the parents are able to see them and that they're happy and that they want to come back and contribute to the community. So.
Thank you for your presentation. As I understand it, Native Americans get free tuition at land-grant universities. IU is not a land-grant university. Do you face an uphill fight recruiting Native American students to this campus?
Yes. A year ago, when this scholarship was approved, it was years in the making. Directors before me had been trying for years. And to have that pushed through, it was the right time. A lot of universities have been making changes. And the relationships with the indigenous communities here hasn't been a priority for the university. A year ago, I went out and finished my first semester at IU, and I'm like, I need to visit these communities. If I want to recruit or know their story, then I need to meet them in their locations. So myself and my programming coordinator, we got a car from IU Motor Pool and we drove out to Oklahoma. And I met with the Potawatomi and the Miami located out there, and just listened to their story. And that one of the first steps that I had to do to kind of mend that relationship, and also for them to consider having their students and their family members come to IU. We still have a long way to go. When I do go out to recruit and try to encourage people to come to this university, our history isn't the best. And so, but as I've shared with that, in the recent years, in the last few years, there has been some changes, and Indian country is becoming aware of that. Even having myself in this role has been a huge change too as well. So progress is slow, and I wish I could clone myself and I could take care of the students here and then also have time to go out and recruit. I can't. So I got to figure out kind of ways to do that the best way I can. But we're headed in the right direction, and I'm very positive that we will get there. And it's helpful too that I had such a good experience here, and that I love this community and I have enjoyed it, and it's been a wonderful home for our family.
Hello, thank you for being here, and thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Jim, and I've had the pleasure and the responsibility of serving on Bloomington City Council, along with my colleague Sue Scamboluri, that's on Zoom. But the question that I'd like to pose with you, during my second term, we began using a labor and land acknowledgement statement before we started every meeting. Of course, the land acknowledgement is of our indigenous peoples and the land in which we were at. And the labor agreement had to do with development and building up, in particular, people that were enslaved at the time. But I guess I'm asking, and we did research, we checked with First Nations leadership before and other folks, but what are your thoughts on that type of approach on educating and acknowledging land and labor from us non-natives, for lack of a better term? Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, in today's meeting, we started out with a land acknowledgement, and it was beautiful. It was nice to hear, and it reminders. And it's also important, I think, to just be saying those words, but doing a little bit more. And as I mentioned earlier, if you visit some of their social media websites and their pages, and you see some of the things that are being actively done in the communities, those are different ways that you can engage and also support those communities. And also too, just kind of learning a little bit more, about the history of this area as well. For myself too, in this role, as I mentioned, I'm not from here. And I think a lot of us too are transplants from different parts. And so, and most of us love Bloomington. And so kind of finding more about the story, and also of the indigenous people, but also sharing that story with your children and your grandchildren. And so they know that as well. I think it's time for us to kind of just be kind of hiding and shunning a part of that history, because you can't. You can try to cover it up, but it's still there. And so, we need to dust that off, learn a little bit more about it, and so that we can move forward and we don't have to be so shameful. And then our children and our grandchildren will learn how to address issues and face them, than to just keep covering it up.
You mentioned the long walk a couple times. What exactly was the long walk?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the Navajos were gathered by the U.S. Army, by Kit Carson, and they were in Arizona and New Mexico, and they were brought to New Mexico in Fort Sumner, which is I think an hour or two east of Albuquerque. And the U.S. Army tried their best. There's lots of Navajos out there, and there still are, but they just couldn't get them all. When you looked at a map of the country at that time, there was a hole in that area because there was just no maps that existed in Navajo land. And so we were able to use that to our benefit. And so where my father's family is from, it's near Navajo Canyon. There's just endless canyons everywhere. And so that's where my father's family hid. And because the US government didn't know how to navigate that area, then they couldn't collect all the Navajos. They were trying to get the Navajos to then relocate to Oklahoma, where all the other tribes were, and they gave up after about 5 years. And so that worked out well for us. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for speaking with us today. So having students coming from various tribes in different areas around the country, what is it like coming together with various cultural differences and overlapping?
Yeah, that definitely is it is a challenge. I think the joke at the center is the Navajos have a lot more like strict guidelines and taboos. And so there's so many things that, we can't do. And so, for example, we just had the eclipse, and the Choctaw Nation, they have a celebration when the eclipse is happening, and they think it's a squirrel covering it. And so they bang pots and pans and hit so that it's this celebration that's going on during the eclipse. But for the Navajo, it's a sacred moment. And so we don't go outside, we don't eat, we don't drink, and we just sit in reverence because the sun and the moon are having a conversation, and we need to be respectful of this rebirth that is happening. So, some of our students were excited, and they got together and they watched the eclipse, which was fine, and some of the Navajo students were like, oh, like, how do we handle this? Like, this is going to be something, and so it's something that I've had to talk to, my students about how do we address this, and all our differences, and certain animals are taboo and other animals aren't. But we just try to be respectful, and there's so little of us that we do, and we make it work. And so, yeah, the Navajo students who during the eclipse, had conversations with me about it, and found ways to celebrate and honor that moment as well. And so, yeah, it's definitely, being patient and just kind of finding beauty in all.
Is there controversy about who is considered a Native American, as in immigrant communities? For example, there, as people intermarry, as they become less connected, or, is there a percentage, or you are accepting people who say, I am Navajo, I am Potawatomi, I am whatever? So
at the center, we welcome everybody. We welcome Native, and we welcome non-Native. A lot of our students will bring in friends that are not Native, and we have students who come in and say, I think I have Native blood, and we listen, and we figure out ways to help them find out where that Native blood comes from. Our community is so small that it's not my place to be the gatekeeper of that. And it's also too, I welcome having allies, you know, people who want to know more of the stories and want to be respectful. And so I think, you know, depending on where you grew up and the way your family has viewed it, it depends on that. But I grew up in a community where, you know, we had now non-Navajos in our community, and they knew our language and they knew our words because they chose to live there. And so they were considered a part of our family. And so for me, I think if you're putting in the work and you're trying and you're learning, then you should be a part of the community.
I'll make it quick. Again, I just want to, my name is Jerona from School of Public Health. You know me. I want to say congratulations on the great work that you're doing. You say that you have 10 faculty at IU and 2 of those are in the School of Public Health.
Yes.
We're proud of that. So I know we've been working with you to see how we can recruit more and recruit the students. And you say that you received the first batch of students this semester. How many are those? And then my next question is, are you making any efforts to make sure that in future the scholarships also include First Nation students who are not federally recognized?
Yes, so we do. We have 5 students coming in that have received a scholarship. And we had this conversation when we were setting up the scholarship a year ago. I don't want to be the person to determine who to verify if their enrollment is right or not based on state or federally recognized or whatever. So we decided to just put it on the tribe. The tribe is the one who verifies the enrollment. And so federally recognized too, a lot of the states tribes have an opportunity to then enroll with the federally recognized branch as well. So we just kind of followed the lead of what some of the other universities were doing back west, and decided to make sure so that enrollment was verified by the tribe themselves. All the tribes have different enrollment processes and blood quantums as well. And so it was just easier just to have the tribe verify the student. And it was a tough decision because I have a student who is their tribe has the strictest guidelines in the country. You have to live on your reservation in order to be enrolled. And she lives here. And we can't give her the scholarship because of that. But then we're just kind of entering like murky an area where then who is going to be that person to ultimately make that decision? And so I didn't want that responsibility. And I want to make sure that we want to make sure we continue to have good relationships with tribal communities, and we'll just honor the way that they're handling their enrollment.
Thank you, Sherene. Coming from Oklahoma, I truly appreciate the work that you're doing and know how important it is. And you're right, nothing post 1900 really was ever taught in the schools. So it's great to hear that we're making progress on that front. In honor of the program, we'll be donating $100 a quarter for New Leaf, New Life. So thank you for that. As we all know, we couldn't have our meeting without all the help of the people here and the members in the club. So thank you to our executive assistant, Natalie Blaze, for all that you do. Steve Wicks pulling double duty as both greeter and introductions. Joy, as always, for the good work you do on Zoom. Judy for a great reflection, very appropriate given the toast coming up. Bill Perkins for all the work you're doing with reporting. And Lori for stepping in last minute to run the camera and the microphone. And Tyler, we're glad you're back. Not that Alon didn't do a fabulous job. He did. And then Sally, I was told we need to start recognizing people who do introductions as well. So thank you for that. Our next meeting will be on the 3rd here in the Frangipana room. Our speaker will be District Governor Mandry Lorem. And with that, Tyler, please share the graph of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill or better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?